Hello and welcome to The Open Effect. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Rubina, and today we've got a really exciting topic for you, which is the topic of mental health. It affects almost every one of us. I'd like to introduce you to our amazing guest. This is Hara.
Hi everyone, my name is Hara. I'm a psychologist. I've been working in the field for the past 4 years. I chose to become a psychologist because I love helping people. Initially, after high school, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I started doing law, and I didn't really like that. So then I did psychology because I knew I wanted to help people. And so I work 2 days I work for myself, so Haramal Psychology, and then 3 other days elsewhere. I focus in areas like anxiety, depression. I do assessments as well.
And do you do a lot with like young people? Do you have like a demographic?
So my youngest client is 7. My oldest is 86.
So everyone
across the lifespan, I guess the majority of my clients are in their 20s, 30s. Yeah, like that adult population. I find that people connect with different types. Every psychologist is different, just like every person. So I think different demographics will feel more comfortable with me right now. Maybe in 10 years' time, maybe a different demographic will feel more comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to go into this industry? What drove you to want to become a psychologist, especially in this day and age?
Well, I think that's a nice way to help people because you get to help people in a more personal level, like on a 101. I also think the field of psychology is very broad as well. So you can focus in so many different areas, like different populations, different presentations. You can do online, you can do physical. Like there's a lot of flexibility. I love to. I'm a very curious person. I love to hear people's stories. If I can change someone's perspective about something, that makes my day. So
amazing. Yeah. And do you believe in? I know there's different therapeutic acts. So there's like talk therapy.
Yeah.
Meditation. What kind of
approaches? Yeah. So there's different types of therapies, and most psychologists they use most of the time an eclectic style, which is a combination of a few different therapies. So the ones that I use, predominantly I use a therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. So that focuses on accepting things that are out of our control and doing something about the things, or committing to something that we can do something about. I also use cognitive behavior therapy, which is the most popular one. Personally, I also use another therapy. It's called polyvagal therapy, solution-focused therapy. There is behavioral activation, which is more like behavioral type of stuff. And mindfulness is part of, a lot of this as well. All of it is talk therapy. But some of them are more about cognitive, some of them are more behavioral, some of them are more somatic. So a bit of a combination of everything,
Amazing. Can you tell us, what is mental health?
Yeah, so mental health encompasses of a few different aspects of our lives. So we have our psychological health, we have our emotional health, we have cognitive health as well. There's different aspects, and they all interact and impact then our ability to act socially speaking, and to function and to think and to concentrate and whatnot. So when it comes to people experiencing distress, there are different levels of distress, and distress is part of life. A disorder, it's when this distress is so significant that it's impacting other areas of life, like your work or your social life, or the way that you look at yourself and how you function as a human being.
And your mental health can obviously affect your physical health as well. So it's all kind of tied together.
Yeah.
So how long before, like when someone's dealing with an issue, how long do they have to deal with it before it becomes like a mental health issue?
It depends on the condition. So for example, the classic anxiety or depression. We all have anxiety, we all have depression these days. So there's one thing, to feel anxious or to feel depressed, and there's another thing to have generalized anxiety disorder or major depressive disorder, 6 months is where kind of the cut is for both of those presentations, and it's the majority of those 6 months, and that's just one of the criteria. There's a lot of other criteria. I like to, because a lot of the clients that come and see me, they think, oh, like, is this really bad, this stress or this anxiety? And I guess the question is, what areas of life is it impacting? Because let's say you have you get some intrusive thoughts, okay? But you get random intrusive thoughts. Let's say I'm going to jump on a table, and you get it, and you're like, oh, whatever, and then you keep doing your job. Like, that's not, you have like a problem with like OCD and like obsessive compulsive thoughts, Now, if you were getting the same intrusive thought, I'm going to jump on the table, but you were really distressed about it, and you're like, oh my God, like, this thought is really distressing me. I can't leave my house because I'm scared I'm going to jump on tables. Or you actually jump on tables, like you're here and I jump here. That's a problem. So yeah, that's kind of the differentiation. And you can work on both areas, I'm not saying that only if it's really bad, that's when it's worth working on it. Of course not. I think when people are proactive is a lot more helpful than when they're just reactive.
Yeah. So basically, it is when you're really struggling and it's impacting your day-to-day life. For example, you've got your life is going well, you've got everything going well, and you can't pinpoint why you feel so low, why you're struggling to like be happy, or it's someone who they don't have a social life, they don't have that social network to really help them feel like they're living a fulfilling life, and then it leads to them feeling like, for example, depressed or anxious to go out because they don't really have the social connections.
But I've also found it can be the opposite as well, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. When everything is going right, when you finally get everything that you've ever wanted, it also can cause stress, and then you're like, why is this happening? Because I'm getting everything's going well. You could get a promotion, you could get engaged, all these amazing things are happening, and you also are feeling depressed or stressed or don't know how to really process your feelings.
So I have a lot of clients that would fit that category. It's an interesting topic because a lot of them will say, on paper I meet all the criteria, but I'm just not feeling right. And when that happens, I guess using the ACT perspective, the acceptance and commitment therapy, we look at the values. Like, everyone has different values, different ways of wanting to live life. And like when you think you're doing everything right but something is missing, it's about, well, what is that? Like, is it more free time? Is it more quality time? Is it like it's very individual, I guess. It depends on a lot of things. Sometimes people also have, I guess, those high standards, and the goalpost always changes. So being aware of that can really help to reduce some of those kind of ongoing pressures, like, okay, I got the house, now it's like the car, or just relax.
It's always like, oh, okay, I've achieved this thing, now what's the next thing I've got to achieve?
It's the grass is always greener. They do say that, and I think being aware of that, and this is where mindfulness and like being in the present, and this is where gratitude can come in, and different other, like, I guess, aspects of life to give light to them as well, not just what you don't have. Or
Would you say, obviously in today's society, there's so many things impacting our mental health, and like, you can try and say mental health affects some people but it doesn't others, but in reality we all will go through some form of mental health challenges because we all will lose someone we love.
Like, it's oversaturated. Like, mental health is so like with social media now, I'm sure you might have seen it, that it's actually more popular to share, trauma dumping. It's a new trend. So people, you're about to cry, people turn on the camera and then they just let it go. Now that it's kind of everywhere, it's almost oversaturated, like content. Do you think you've seen that more in the last 4 years?
So I think the fact that people are more open to talk about their mental health can definitely help, especially in populations like, you know, you get now tradies coming in, with their tradie work clothes, and that's something that I'm assuming like 10 years ago, before my time, wasn't as popular.
No.
So I think it definitely has helped some populations, but I also do believe in negative attention, which is like giving too much attention to something that maybe just doesn't need that much attention, if that makes sense. Let's say my coffee was not good, and I have the first sip and I'm like, oh, great, a great start to the day, my coffee sucks. Now if I just acknowledge that and then move on and get onto my work, like that coffee is not going to affect me as much. But now if I sit here and tell you about how bad my coffee is, I am reinforcing the same feelings, the same affect of how bad my coffee was, and then I'll feel worse, and then you'll validate me, and you'll be like, it really sucks when your coffee sucks. So then you end up actually feeling worse often, and that's there's research actually on like venting and complaining. Having a good vent sometimes can help, but they found that the most helpful people to vent to are people that are more solutions focused or like future focused, and of course validating. Rather than ones that will just like add fuel to the fire.
Right. That's actually really interesting. I hear that it's like 80% of your thoughts during the day is negative. So if you have someone who's feeding into that, which I'm not going to generalize, but women, we're quite good at that. We'll quite
fear
pile
one
it on.
another.
Yeah, we're like, oh well, this happened to me. This day is really shit. I actually changed my perspective when I met my now husband. He's very much like, okay, that happened. That happened. Like now, let's like look at what maybe the next customer is going to be really nice. Like don't like, all right, that's happened. Put it at the back of your head and like let's just keep going.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's fascinating because like I think that we women, especially I know there's research to show that we women are more prone to be depressed than, let's say, men, but also there's statistics that show that men are more depressed, but they go.
I think that it's like more likely to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because maybe women do have that opportunity to speak, whereas men, it's like, no, don't talk about when you're feeling. I know, like in my culture of men, it's like, no, you don't talk, you don't complain, you just work hard, and then
and that's
it. Yeah, suck it up. That's life. And
then I think there is a healthy medium. That's the thing. Like I think it's good to like let go of some things and just not suppress them, but like just don't give them that much attention. But then if something very serious is happening, which that's when the suicide is not going to happen because of the coffee. It will happen because of something a bit more significant. That's of course when you need to talk, because normally it's not even just about validation. It's maybe about problem solving, and sometimes people need to just feel heard as well. Like it depends.
Would you say that, for example, for women who experience, for example, in my case, that seasonal depression, or whether it's menopause or even the elderly, because we know like as the older we get, the more prone to having depression.
Not really.
No.
I was thinking, I'm like, as I get older, I probably get less depressed, or like I learn to better manage my stress.
So the elderly in particular, they're found to be happier than people our age, which
really?
we normally say grumpy old man or whatever. Studies actually show otherwise. So that's I think something that's interesting that most people maybe are not aware of. So I guess it's because there's less stress, you're retired, you have grandkids, like, well, you hope anyway that you are. Of course, not for everyone.
I think if you have regrets or you are struggling, then you might. But that's like with everyone.
So I work with NUS participants, but also I work with the elderly. And in my line of work, I do see a lot of people going through the mental health challenges in their day-to-day. And it's both people living with disability and the elderly as well. And I think I'm seeing a lot of it is to do with isolation. Would you say, or have you come across research that is showing that the more we isolated, especially in the case of the elderly, then they're more likely people are to be depressed or to go through the mental health challenges.
There, especially in Australia, there is a loneliness pandemic. I think the national government has also recognized that as well.
Really?
If you think about humans in general, we are mammals, we are social creatures, and we do need that connection for various reasons. So when loneliness is highly correlated with depression and anxiety and earlier death as well. So your longevity of is affected by if you are isolated or if you have a community of people around you. So there's a high correlation there.
Do you think it's to do with Australian culture though? As a country, we're quite isolated. When you meet people from different cultures, I've got a Greek background, we're very, very family orientated. So when you speak about the elderly, they are looking after the grandkids. We're doing weekly dinners. You're seeing your family quite a lot. But when I speak to other people from different cultures, that's not the norm.
Yeah, exactly. So Greek culture and a lot of other cultures around the world are collectivists, which is about the community. And then you have your individualistic cultures, which is more the Western cultures, which is Australian, I guess, part of the Australian
even America.
culture. Absolutely, And so that's culturally it does make sense. Also the fact that Australia is so big, you just in metropolitan areas is different, but when we talk about rural or remote, your closest neighbor is kilometers away. I used to volunteer at Lifeline for 2 years before, during my education, and I had one suicide call. The majority of them were actually loneliness calls.
Wow.
So there's so many lonely people, or just people that had crises, because Lifeline is a crisis hotline. It's not necessarily just if you're having such thoughts of suicide. But there were so many lonely people, especially elderly, and it would break my heart.
It's quite sad, and I can see how the shift, in my experience again, the shift is moving to also young people.
I think it does come to cultures, because you do see the people who are kind of left behind, the kids grow up quite early, leave the house early, and then people who have that as their purpose, they've left with nothing. I think it then comes down to instilling those values in your children and hoping that they will come back to you, I would say. For me, my family's so old school. I didn't move out until I got married. And even now I'm 4 minutes from my parents, so I see them probably more than when I was living with them.
And we are already seeing it even with the Gen Z, in the sense that the video games and people just really isolating themselves. There are positive aspects to video games and again social media, but I think it shouldn't replace face to face, going out and about type of behavior, but it is. Even from some millennials, that stay in their parents' basements playing video games. You see the metaverse, and you can apparently buy land on metaverse, and there's, I wonder, in 50 to 100 years, or maybe less, who knows, will we be living a life online? And then you have Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's new project, and so that's not being trialed. What does that mean in the future? And you have the Apple ones. Have you seen the new Apple?
And then you can just
glasses?
Watch everything from your glasses.
So everyone's going to be walking like an alien with them on. Because now we always have, I don't know. The earphones. Everyone walks with them. And actually yesterday I was thinking about it. Back, I only use my headphones at the gym or if I run.
Right.
They're in my gym bag. I don't carry them around. And then I see my younger brother, who's 5 years younger than me, and he's just always with his headphones on. I'm like, it does to me. It seems so odd, and I'm not that old. But,
makes me, I think the same, and I'm damn, I'm old. When I hear he's 4 years, and I'm like, what you go through, I did not have to go through that. But then because I had that transition, so I did have my childhood with no internet, no social media, whereas they kind of grew up with it. So now it's becoming this massive shift. Do you have a lot of young people who come to you with mental health issues caused by social media, or?
Oh yeah, and they'll definitely teens. Like every teen has, every teen that I've had as a client has had issues in relation to either scrolling too much on TikTok or that comparison, you know, and then that leads to the body image issues. But even people our age, not I think like I haven't, from my experience with clients, like I don't think over 35 or 40, I haven't heard them have these issues. So it's more like our generation kind of thing, people in 20s, early 30s, and definitely teens. You waste your time, first of all. So there's a lot of time just lost, plus then the comparisons, plus the high standards. And, you know, going back to what you said earlier about you have everything and you still feel like something is missing. Like that's not helping. It's probably subconsciously adding, you know, contributing to that dissatisfaction with life.
With the social media, do you have people who come to you with issues that they've kind of picked up through viewing someone else, like someone else's content, who's depressed, who has what's the personality disorder?
Borderline personality.
The self-harming, you know, we can go into the gender issues, but all these different things that are constantly being advertised. Do you have people who come to you confused because I see this?
The most common one is actually for ADHD. You know, I've had a lot of clients that either come to us for assessment, like where I work, for ADHD assessments, or they come for private therapy, but that's like one area that they want to work on. And and that's for actually even people. I have he's 70-something-year-old or 80-something-year-old guy as well, that he's like, look, I did a lot of research and I believe that definitely he would meet the criteria, but obviously he was undiagnosed. So sometimes it can help, the social media, as in like you look at your blind spots, because, you know, I don't know how you live life. I don't know how you live life. We all have our own insight. So when now with social media, you get to hear other people's insight and you're like, oh, I experienced that too. Is that normal? Now, of course, you get a lot of people that will use like a few ADHD traits and make it a diagnosis, which obviously that's not the case. It's good to get you curious about yourself. I think questioning anything about yourself can help. Now, over-fixating, again, negative attention, that doesn't help. Especially like with ADHD, it's a spectrum. We are all in it. So it's a matter of, again, how impactful are the traits that you are presenting? And are you presenting a lot of them as well? Not just forgetting to lock the door or just a few things here and there. But yeah, borderline is the other big one that's very popular at the moment. Like I would say probably about 10 years ago, bipolar was the big thing. So it does change. I don't know why.
It gets trendy almost. Like, which disorder do you have?
That's it. And do you think that in today's society, it's so easy for people in your professional to label people as you've got this, you've got that?
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to diagnosing, there are pros and cons to it. Some pros are the fact that it can explain a lot of the behavior rather than kind of blame the person for being lazy or just being too difficult or whatever. It helps for treatment, because if I know someone has ADHD, I'll be able to treat them a lot easier than having to unpack everything myself, if that makes sense. The cons on the other side are that people can sometimes use it as a label, as an excuse sometimes. Oh, well, sorry, I didn't message, I have ADHD, and that's always the excuse.
I
haven't heard
that one.
I have.
Okay.
You know, like, because forgetfulness is very common with people with ADHD. But I'm sorry, but I think, anyway, I don't know. I just think that you see it, you press it.
If we get on that topic, I think people are just lazy and they don't want to reply to you. And I think, fair enough, but don't use it as an excuse, because you can get busy. I don't think it should be your disorder. Like, you have more to you than these kind of classifications.
And, you know, I'll have clients that come to me and they, like, for therapy, not because when you see a psychologist, you can see them for assessment. So that's, you know, a few hours, you see them get assessed and then that's it. But most of the time you see them for therapy. In therapy, you can look at different like diagnoses if you want to. But it's not like an official, like I'll write a report for you that's what you got kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when I have clients that come to me and they're like, yeah, I want to see if I have like a diagnosis, I explain to them, like, look, let's look at what's going on.
Yeah.
The labels, if that makes you feel better, we can explore first of all why that's the case. But then let's look at the traits, like whether you have ADHD or not, especially some clients, like they'll be very mild. So it's a matter of, okay, well, how can we manage that? And that's, I think, looking at symptoms and treating symptoms is more important than diagnosing. Again, depends on the severity. And if you want to go down medication pathway for anything, obviously then you kind of need the diagnosis.
Yeah. Now that you've mentioned medication,
Mhm.
I'm hearing, and in my experience as well, now it's so easy to revert people to medication or refer people to medication, and it's becoming a quick fix. Would you say you're seeing a lot of that?
So first of all, psychologists don't prescribe medication. So even if clients ask for advice for medication to me, I tell them as a disclaimer that I don't have a medical background, so I can't really tell you if you should take or what you should take or what not. But saying that as well, I think when it comes to like medication, there's different obviously types. Let's say for antidepressants, there's so many different types of antidepressants because there's different types of depression as well. And there's this new research that's coming up that's showing that we don't actually know too much about the different types of depression. Therefore, some people will be prescribed like the most popular medications, and then they don't work for them, but that's not necessarily because the medication wasn't great, but that's because it wasn't suited for them. Also, GPs are notorious for overprescribing sometimes medication, antidepressants, because it's or anti-anxiety, because it is more of a quick fix. And sometimes that may help people to get them off that very suicidal state or something, if it's like for a few months, because antidepressants and this type of medication take about 4 weeks to kick in anyway. So taking it for a few months, I think it can help, depending again. I don't my personal opinion, I don't think you need to go, that shouldn't be your first resort, depending again how bad you are. A lot of people, what they do is they will start therapy and antidepressants at the same time. I think that's a better combination. But I always tell my clients, look, even if you take ADHD medication or like antidepressants, like that's not going to fix your bed. That's not going to message the messages that you're not replying to. So the behavioral stuff is still very important.
Do you think there's been an increase in this sort of victim mentality that is feeding into, not the bed can't get made because I've got ADHD or these sort of behavioral things?
I think it comes down to character sometimes as well. Like, especially back the older generation, that ADHD wasn't as recognized as it is now. Like people would just learn to do it. I right now have a client. My client she's like maybe a 15-year-old girl, but she comes with her mum, and she has undiagnosed ADHD. It's pretty obvious that she'll probably have it, more the inattentive side of things. And she was talking about how she's impacted by that. And then mom kind of came in and she's like, look, I've had the same issues, but I've had to learn to do it regardless. So sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Right.
And then you learn to work around it because you think that's normal and I just have to work maybe a bit extra hard or whatnot. And I think that's great in the sense that then you feel more empowered, you feel more confident. Sometimes that can exhaust you. Like if you always have to try extra hard for everything, that's another story. So I think, again, it depends where you're at.
Because you got like something like dyslexia.
I am.
And it is, you've just got to learn a different way than everyone else. But then it's recognizing that and then following through on it.
Yeah. Like I do assess children with dyslexia, and that's the thing. Like the recommendations are things like reducing the reading, doing more practice. Like it's not like don't get them to read at all, but also these days we have technology that can help, like use audiobooks or because sometimes that skill is not like it's gonna magically disappear, but it can get better. And same thing with like ADHD. Attention is like a muscle. The more you practice, the better it gets. So I think people need to kind of still be resilient and like practice and trying to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned the word resilience, and I think maybe where we're at with this crisis, I believe that there's a lot of lack of resilience or teaching people resilient in the face of adversity. And I think I in my experience I've had to face a lot of adversity, and there's a lot of childhood trauma. And when I think about mental health, I know trauma plays a big factor in why a lot of people experience that. But in my experience, having to go through a lot of adversity, building resilience, I wish I had people, I wish I had access early on to, psychotherapy, to a counselor so I could like unpack what I've experienced in my life. But I think resilience is really what helped me in dealing with my mental health challenges. And I feel like a lot of that is lacking in today's society in teaching people how to build that. And I've had ways where I've managed to help myself, and it's through watching, YouTube, for example, doing things like meditation and mindfulness, which has really helped me a lot. I can't say that it's gonna help everyone, but in both your cases, have you like done things like mindfulness or meditation?
I've definitely tried meditation, but I'm one of those people I cannot sit still.
Yeah.
It like through certain like times in life it can help. I find gratitude has helped me the most. So every single day I say like what I'm thankful for, and it's just like constantly reminding yourself like it's not so bad. Like you do have bad days and tough months and bad things are gonna happen. That's like given. It's just a spectrum of what's gonna happen. And I often find when people do go through those harder times, like the most caring, courageous people have been through the worst. And then you get people who haven't really suffered that much, but every little inconvenience feels massive to them. So I think it's really reminding yourself of like the good in life, because there are.
I do practice gratitude every night for the past 6 months. I think I have like a little notebook by my bedside table, and I write 3 things that I'm grateful for today. Like I make it very specific, especially if I feel that those hormonal, like I get very like bad PMS, and you don't feel like doing things, or you just feel moody or whatnot. But I think if you continue to do what you're meant to do, like go for that walk regardless of how you feel, or spend that time with that person even if you can't be bothered, like because by the end I always feel better. So I think it's that beginning just feels so overwhelming, but just recognizing that you just have to do it, and then most of the time you will feel better, and sometimes you won't, and that's okay. Like it's not the end of the world.
That's it. I think in also accepting that it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel bad on certain days, because life throws us so much. We deal with so many things in life that we feel like, oh, are we ever going to find happiness? Are we ever going to feel content and at peace? Life is really complicated, but in accepting that it's okay to go through those sadness, it's okay to cry, it's okay to ask for help, I think we can accept that, and we can be okay with that, because I know I deal with moments where I think a lot of like really negative thoughts about the world, and like the fact that I'm no longer going to be here one day. I know it's really dark, but how do we, like, I think about my little sisters, I think about other young children, imagine they're faced with these thoughts at such young age, but not being able to have people that are telling them, what you're feeling is okay. It's okay to feel the deep sadness about the fact that one day you'll no longer be here, one day you'll lose your loved ones. I think having these conversations and teaching young people, older people, everyone, how to be okay with that. I think it's really powerful, because that's part of life, you know, as much as we talk about happiness and marriage and love and all the things that bring happiness, it's okay to talk about the things that cause us sadness as well. Have you heard about the keto diet, or the carnivore diet that it's new in research at the moment, but have you had anything about by changing your diet and following a specific diet, you can alleviate some form of mental health disorders?
Well, I haven't heard of that research, but I know that eating healthy does contribute positively towards our mental health. The reason for that is because where our stomach is, there is a nerve called the vagus nerve, and it's the longest nerve in our bodies. It connects from our stomach to the back of our heads, and when we eat healthy foods, there's a lot of, I guess, positive kind of chemicals, just helpful chemicals that they will then kind of travel to our brains and give us these kind of good feelings.
I definitely agree with eating healthy or eating right for your body. For me, I've done like a no sugar diet, and that has, not that I even ate that much sugar, but you really figure out what is in even bread, sauces. There's so much sugar, there's so much added preservatives that your body just doesn't agree with, and I've never felt better with not having any sugar.
Do you still have no sugar?
Still
Oh
no
my
sugar.
God.
Like
Same.
I have no sugar. I'm open to it, to like have a treat, but when I have treats, it doesn't do anything for me now. And I think because now it's been like over 2 months, 3 months now, that I'm no longer addicted to sugar. Whereas before, like the first week, I was like, oh my God, I want that. I want that. Like I couldn't stop. I was dreaming about donuts. Like who does that? But it's got us like so addicted to sugar and bad food for you that once you start eating right and even exercising, your body gets so in tune. And I know different diets help for everyone. I know you're a vegetarian. I don't. I think meat is good for you, but everyone's body responds differently to food. So
that is so right. It definitely, like my diet, I've been on a different diet, and I've noticed, you know, when I'm on this diet, like my mental clarity is so much better. You know, I feel more happier. I'm able to have lots of energy and whatnot. But again, my experience is so different, you know, to your experience. And but trying new things and seeing what works for you, even seeing a psychologist, and even being open to them and letting them know this is the diet I'm on and this is what I'm noticing. I think that helps as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Hara. We really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
You can Google me. I don't have a website.
Okay.
You can just just Google my name, Hara.
Maybe we'll put your email in the description if you want people to reach out, and you are working for yourself, so you can.
I appreciate it. I do see, you know, people, like I said, all different ages, different presentations, CNDAS clients or like Medicare, like rebate type of clients or private clients as well.
Awesome. Well, before we like close off, what is one advice that you would give to us and our listeners, our viewers, like in terms of this topic that we've just dived into?
Okay.
Go see Hara.
Yes. Quick fix. I guess one of my favorite things I always used to say to myself, like during uni or like just doing something difficult, like I've done a bodybuilding competition, like I've done a few different things that like have challenged me, like self-imposed challenges, and I've always used the Nike logo. Just do it. So I think that's
I always say one day at a time. Just get through one day.
It's true.
I agree. I agree, and I think it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask help as well. But thank you so much for coming through and, you know, being open and discussing
I'm sure
such
we'll have you back.
sensitive.
We're gonna have a topics du jour.
Definitely.